Let me get my guy up here.
I think you want a little,
Do you want the real question?
Yo,
Let me answer, Anton.
What up, though, Myron?
yeah, what's up, man? Is the audio coming in good?
Yep, it's
That nigga in the
perfect.
grocery store. Ain't it?
Perfect.
I'm in New York City. I'm in like a bodega.
Yeah, you've been killing it when it comes to breaking down a lot of this case and stuff like that too. I just want to give you.
Yeah, no, I saw that you guys were on here, man. So I was like, man, let me show some love, answer any questions that people got, because I've actually been in the courtroom, with Diddy and them for a couple of the days.
Well,
So
first,
like,
let me ask you this: How?
yeah,
What is your sleep schedule like?
bro, it's fucked right now, man. I ain't gonna lie. I've been like sleeping, a couple hours a night. Tonight's probably gonna be the first night in like a week that I'll be able to be able to actually get some sleep, because you got to get there early to get in the front of the line to get if you actually want to get in the courtroom with Diddy. If you don't care about that, then you can show up at 9 and it'll be straight.
Yeah. What time do you have to get there?
So I'm typically waking up like 6:30. It takes me like 10-15 minutes to walk over there, and then yeah, that's it. And then once I get over there, I'm waiting in line for like another hour or two, and and then from there, you're just waiting for the judge to walk in, and then they argue. The defense and the prosecution argue about evidence and a bunch of other stuff. Both legal sides are extremely competent, very well versed in what they're doing, and then from there they basically bring the jury in, and then they start the proceedings.
What what is your biggest takeaways? Because I was following a lot of what you were saying prior to
Yeah, yeah.
having to start on the show. What is your biggest takeaways as far as her being cross examined from the defense?
Um,
I seen that you was talking about how I think I had to stop at the part where you was the other day where you was talking about how the um the prosecution was objecting to everything.
That show.
yeah, that's me. That's me.
Oh, word. I'm excited
I
for your
appreciate that,
fit.
man.
Fresh
Thank
and
you.
fit. I fuck with
Hey,
your
thank you
shit.
for
Word.
supporting the show, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Um,
Safety
Yeah,
first.
you were
hey,
saying that
man, I try. Hey, I'll try, bro, until the Jews cancel me. But anyway,
the prosecution was the rejecting a lot of the exhibits. But
yeah.
what was your biggest takeaway from
Yeah. I can.
cross examination and how you think that they did as far as the defense examining Cassie?
Yeah. So what I think is I'll step out here to hopefully get a little bit of better sound for you guys. So here's the thing. So both sides, let me kind of paint the picture here so people understand like how significant this is. When I was the agent and I was on the job, right? You would have maybe 1 to 2 AUSAs on a criminal case. If you
Mhm.
had a big RICO or a big OCDF case, which stands for Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, you might get 3 AUSAs. But this case has 6 for one defendant. Okay, so I've never seen that before. And then Diddy obviously is kind of matching that. He got like 7 or 8 lawyers. Brian Steele's on his team, who was the
Young
lawyer
Thug.
that successfully got Young Thug kind of out of jail time, right? Got him a really good plea deal. He did a great job cross-examining one of the witnesses in the trial. But to answer your question, as far as like the whole situation between the things, so the defense did a really good job cross-examining. Now the prosecution, right? Because Cassie is their star witness. So the prosecution's job, even though they'll never admit this, is to protect their main witness. So when the defense was asking really probing questions or getting into an angle where it might make her look bad, they immediately objected. And the other thing also that Cassie has to her advantage is that she's a sex crime victim. As a sex crime victim, there's certain rules that come into play that kind of protect her ability to stay a victim, and certain things aren't able to be used against her. Like one of the things that they argued in the court was that they didn't want the defense to bring up other men that she was involved with and sex acts with those men. And that's just one of the examples. I think it's called Rule 412, if I'm not mistaken, in the federal criminal procedure. But and there's a bunch of other things as well that they're objecting on, but that's the one that kind of stands out because this is a sex trafficking case, which affords her certain benefits as a witness that she, can kind of be protected from when it comes to cross examination. So that was one thing that they were using quite a bit. But what happened, what I thought was really interesting today, and so just so I can kind of paint it for your audience, so they're cross examining Cassie, right? She's on the stand. And the defense, in preparation of cross examining her, labels all the exhibits that they want to put. Mind you, these exhibits are the same exhibits. Can you guys hear me still?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I thought I cut out there. So these exhibits are the same exhibits. Um, these exhibits are the same exhibits that the prosecution actually put into place um, against Diddy. And what the defense was able to do, and as in many occasions they did, they took that the prosecution's evidence and they Uno reversed it on Cassie. So in this case, what ended up happening was contrary to popular belief, all the freak off footage and evidence actually came from Cassie. It did not come from Diddy, as people think. It actually came from Cassie. She had it on iPads and laptops from like, she's been holding on to it for like a decade. And then the HSI extracted all the stuff and then they put it into evidence. And there was a lot of argument about that as well. But for the purpose of this story, I had to tell you guys that. So this evidence that they had, they started labeling exhibits that the government had used on direct that they wanted to bring in. And the government was able to successfully, right, as they try to introduce each piece of evidence, they were able to object, and they got a majority of these exhibits that they were planning to use. Pretty much they couldn't use it. The defense couldn't use it. So it fucked them up, because what ended up happening is when you have evidence, right, and you got it in a chain like that, I already know the defense attorney had a line of questioning that they wanted to do on the witness. And once they started objecting to the exhibits, what ended up happening was they weren't able to do the line of questioning that they wanted, so they had to move on to the next subject. And this is extremely rattling as an attorney, where you're trying to kind of paint a picture for the jury, because you have to paint the picture not by you saying it, but by you asking certain questions to the defendant that kind of give you affirmative answers. That you can't do speculation or relevance, and it's got to be relevant. So you have to be very precise in how you ask questions, and the evidence helps you do that. So the prosecution did a really good job of basically defending their witness against the defense in that case. But then the defense came back and hit them hard, because what the defense did was those text messages that Cassie was trying to use. Sorry, guys. It's New York City, man.
No, you're fine. We hear you great.
Okay. So so the defense, what they did was they dropped a couple of bombshells. The first one that they dropped was, as you guys know, Cassie made the allegation that she had been, we're on YouTube, raped by Diddy, right, in August of 2018. Yep. And what the defense said was, well, you told us in court that you had been raped in 2018 in August, but your legal documents and the reports from the agents that interviewed you said that you were raped actually in September of 2018. And this contradicts the testimony that you gave. And then they tried to kind of put the government on blast and be like, well, didn't the government prepare you for this trial? And she was like, yeah. And in what the government prepared you, they told you that it actually happened in August, because they had the text messages there and they were showing it to her. So they did that. And people might say, well, Myron, that's not that big a deal. It's just like a month, bro. Like, why are you being so nitpicky? Well, they're trying to show here that she's not as accurate, and they're challenging credibility. Because this isn't about proving Diddy innocent, guys. And I think it's very important that people understand this. The defense's job is not to make Diddy innocent. The defense's job is to make you think it's possible that he's innocent. And that's the key distinction. So when they brought that up, the discrepancy between when she said she was raped versus when it was actual rape, that was one thing. Then they built on that. Then they said, okay, Cassie, is it not true that you and Diddy had continued to converse with each other after this alleged rape? And she said, yeah. And then they pulled up text messages where she said something about, I miss you, with a heart emoji, and basically text messages that you wouldn't typically send to someone that just raped you a month prior. And then they continued to have conversation. They met up at a birthday party. And then this all led to about a month later, her having sex with him on September 27, 2018, right? And as she was having sex with him, her boyfriend at the time, this guy, the Alex, her husband now, FaceTimed her, and she declined the call. Now, obviously, optically, this looks fucking horrible, because the whole like courtroom was like, oh. So they did a good job of like debunking the rape allegation, right? And then making her come off as like promiscuous. And that was their strategy the whole time. They had to do it in a roundabout way to get around the 412 rules, but they were able to establish through a lot of their cross-examination the multiple boyfriends she had, the multiple relationships she had, the cheating that she did with Ryan Leslie on Diddy, how she cheated on Diddy with Kid Cudi, how she did a lot of these. She had a pattern of certain behavior.
Wait, cheating with Ryan Leslie on Diddy?
No. She cheated on Ryan Leslie with Diddy.
Right. Okay, I got
yeah.
You.
So like
she had never actually publicly, as far as I knew, established that she was officially in a relationship with Ryan Leslie.
She said on the stand they were together for 3 years, bro. That's what she said on the stand. And it was pretty, because they met when she was modeling. So that's what happened. But yeah,
how old was she then?
She was, when she met him, she was like 18, 19, I think. Diddy, 21. She basically her and Diddy linked up after she turned 21. Give me one sec, guys. I'm gonna take a quick pick. Give me 1 sec.
No, you cool.
Yeah, because that's when they said that she told
Mhm.
Ryan Leslie that she had a gig down in Miami, and they made up a flyer and everything to pretend like there was an event that she was gonna go and show up at for her to go and hook up with Diddy.
Remember, Anton, we was talking about that. I was like, she was with him for a minute.
No. I get it. I'm with it, and then we always assumed that that's what it was, but we never knew how long, and we never. She never actually said that publicly.
Right, but everybody in
Yeah, I mean it's assuming, but at the same time, you got to, you know what I'm saying. Court is different.
no, I get you.
You know what I'm saying.
Hey, sorry
So
about that, guys.
Can
no,
I
you
ask you a
cool.
question, Myron?
Yeah.
Did you take any observation of like the jury, their body language, their demeanor, anything like that, or it wasn't?
Yeah. So I wasn't in there today because it was a pain in the ass. Long story short, they had immigration ceremony today, so that kind of fucked everything up in the line. But from what I heard from Pete, because knew some people that were in there, they said that when this whole discrepancy with the grape allegation came out, the guys were like, "What the fuck?" Like they were rolling their eyes and shit like that because at this point they're like, "Bro, there's like some serious, credibility concerns," because this was a very big part of the case. Because when she originally testified about being raped by Diddy, she made a pretty compelling thing. But then when they pulled out the text messages showing like, hey, you were with this guy, you were conversating with this guy, and you ended up having consensual sex with him a month later, and you fucking declined a FaceTime call from your boyfriend who you were dating at the time, it really shot her in the foot on top of all the other promiscuous activity. So I definitely think the jury lost quite a bit of trust in her after today's
So
testimony.
what's the makeup of the jury, like the demographic?
It's very mixed. They got like damn near 50% male, 50% female. It's blacks, whites. It's very mixed. The jury.
Is her boyfriend in there?
Yeah, he is, dude. He is. They had a whole in one of the days they were arguing about letting him be in there when she actually gave the great testimony. He ended up not being in there when she gave the great testimony. But yeah, he's in there, dude. I look over. I was looking over at him a few times, and you could tell like he's just like extremely uncomfortable. Um, and then they also dropped the other bombshell as well that she sued not sued, but she sent like a legal demand to Intercontinental, and she ended up getting 10 million from them, and she
Mm.
like got the money and settled like a couple of days like prior to the trial. So they've dropped that
Really?
bombshell as well. Sorry.
What?
Well, yeah, man. Yeah, she
Yeah,
got
they've
10
been
million
putting
from
it in the chat all
Intercontinental.
day.
And
This
and
whole session.
that whole Intercontinental thing was a huge blunder, man, because that was evidence that the government like really relied on because it's like been kind of a focal piece of their evidence. So that getting leaked actually fucked up the government's case too, man.
Jesus Christ. So based off of what you see so far,
Yeah.
what do you think that this case is going to turn out to be? If you just had to take a shot in the dark, I know that it's going to be a longer case. If you had to take a shot in the dark of what you think is going to happen, if the government is going to effectively prove the charges that's being levied against them, what would you guess?
All right, so I'll be as objective about. I'm gonna give pluses and negatives on both sides, and I want to let everybody know that this case is still very early on. The government has something like 17 witnesses, guys. So we're still very early on. They said this trial is gonna take roughly 2 months. The judge said that he predicts that they're trying to get this thing done before July 4th. So who knows, man? And usually because I've been to trial before, as things wind down, people scramble to get other evidence, not well, other evidence, and then they potentially bring other witnesses in because as testimony unfolds, you find out other facts. So we'll see what happens. But let me give you I guess the pluses and negatives on both sides. Um, on if I had to make a determine right now what it looks like to me at this moment, right? Again, there's going to be way more witnesses, so this is open to interpretation and change. But
Yeah.
right now at this moment, as we finish day 5, I would say what it looks like to me, and I think anyone that's like in the courtroom is like, okay, this is a dysfunctional relationship where you have two extremely jealous individuals that are both violent, that are both using drugs every single day, partying almost every day, where emotions are fluid and there's a lot of infidelity going on. So it's almost like a recipe for disaster. So And the defense kind of came in with this saying like, look, this is a domestic violence case that somehow has become a sex trafficking case, right? That's what the defense was arguing. And I can see that perspective that they're making, because for them to sit there and say, oh, it's sex trafficking, well, let's be honest here. You know, Cassie had a very strong hand in a lot of this. She was organizing the escorts. She was paying them. She knew them. She was getting a lot of the hotels. She was doing a lot of the logistics. So, you know, for her to kind of omit responsibility from this stuff is a little crazy. But at the same time, right, you could see the other perspective where, you know, Diddy was rich and affluent and, you know, he had power over her career and everything else like that. But, you know, if she wanted to walk away, she could have, but she lived a great lifestyle, right? And she had a lot of opportunities given to her by being over at Bad Boy. So there's two sides to it. Now, on the government side, what I noticed is that there's a lot of inexperienced agents on this case. And I kind of found that out today. They examined, one of the witnesses was an actual HSI agent. And you know, for those that aren't familiar, I used to work for this agency for you know, 10 plus years. So these agents all have like less than 5 years in the field, and New York is their first field office. So, like one rookie mistake they made, for example, was when they arrested Diddy, and they did a search warrant at his hotel. There was $9,000 cash in there, and they seized that as evidence. That was stupid. They shouldn't have done that. And the defense actually started like, you know, attacking the agent for that. Like, why'd you seize this money? And she was like, oh well, bulk cash smuggling. Well, you know, it's really hard to articulate that it's bulk cash smuggling when we know for a fact that that money is legitimate more than likely, because this is a rare situation where we got a crime that isn't profit dependent. It's a crime of, you know, just perversion and his personal
Yeah, he
satisfaction.
wasn't making money from it.
He wasn't making money from this. So for them to seize that money, that was a rookie mistake. And then because they asked her, how long have you been on the job and stuff? And she said, oh, I've been on for 5 years, before with the human smuggling group in New York. And, you know, normally, and I could just kind of talk about this, you never want to take money in a criminal case unless you can, like, unless you're sure that it's proceeds from criminal activity or is like actually important and relevant from an evidentiary standpoint, because seizing money is just problematic and creates issues and headaches for you that you don't need. Because like before the money situation came up, the agent was smooth on the witness stand. She was like very credible, very sharp, very able to answer the questions, which, you know, they teach you this in the academy, so it's her job. But once that money came up, she started unraveling a bit. And in my head, I was like, ah, that's a rookie mistake. Like, you know, never touch money or never seize money unless it makes sense, because it creates liability for you, as she's learning now in trial. Because in trial, everything comes out, right? So that was a mistake that they made. And then I know the case agent on the case, the guy that put this whole thing together, though impressive for him to do a case like this, you know, only 4 or 5 years in, you know, he's just not as experienced. So, you know, I see some kind of a little bit of inexperience from the agent side. It's still a big case. It's still good. Obviously, there's a lot of coordination going on, but you know, there's blunders on both sides to some degree. But the AUSAs are very strong on this thing, and there's 6 of them, which, you know, I've never seen that many AUSAs on a case. But the other thing I'll also say is people got to keep in mind, you know, the feds typically don't lose. This district, Southern District of New York, is very good. It's very popular. They've done some of the biggest cases in history. Well, they're taking down the La Costa Nostra in the 80s by first utilizing RICO with Mayor Giuliani, well, former Mayor Giuliani, or going after Tekashi 6ix9ine, Casanova. They take in a lot of big cases. So the Southern District of New York doesn't take cases unless they're going to win, and A-Side New York is a good office. So what I predict is there's a lot more to this case. The reason why they put Cassie first instead of last, because you typically put your most powerful witness last, is because she's like 7 to 8 months pregnant, and they were making it a kind of an urgency to get her off the stand by Friday. So that's why they were kind of rushing through the testimony to get her out of there.
Yeah, I was seeing you. I was watching a live, and you were saying that you didn't necessarily agree with that because he's fighting for his life, and so you
Yes.
can't necessarily take her pregnancy as a priority over his freedom and his ability to be able to defend himself. What do you think
Yes.
about her whole pregnancy and whether or not that played a huge role in what's going on with the jury and everything like that?
Yeah. So okay. So Diddy kind of shot himself in the foot here, and I'll explain why. So, and we got to kind of go backwards so this all makes sense. And guys, tell me if I'm getting a bit too technical or I'm moving fast, because for me,
Nope, you're
this is
doing well. You're doing perfect.
all right. Cool. Because I know I'm using jargon and shit like that. I want to make sure people understand. So we got to go backwards to understand this. So as you guys know, Diddy got arrested, right? And he put up a very impressive bond package. He put up his house in Miami. It was fully paid off. You know, he put up a bunch of money. He put up a bunch of his assets. And I'll be honest with y'all, any other defendant that put up that kind of money in a criminal case typically would be released, but he never got bond. They didn't let him out. Now I can see why, because evidence in the case shows that he was beating on Cassie or whatever. And typically there's two things that come to play when they do a bond hearing. It's, are you a flight risk and are you a danger to the community? Now, as far as being a flight risk, he surrendered his passport. A lot of people don't know this. He surrendered his passport and was coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office even before he got arrested. He was telling them where he was going. He was being very transparent with them. So the flight risk thing isn't a thing. But then now that I'm like looking at the evidence, I can see why they didn't want to give him bond off the violence thing, because of the beatings on Cassie, right? Because there showed some pictures of her pretty bloodied up and beat up. So that's number one. So since he didn't get bond, he requested what's called a speedy trial. And when you request a speedy trial, they got to get you pretty much in trial within 70 to 90 days, if I'm not mistaken, right? Uh, Within those lines, I just can't. It's a little hazy in my head, and I haven't slept, so sorry about that. But he gets a speedy trial. Now, what happened though is that obviously with the volume of this case, there was like 4 terabytes of information. It's an enormous amount of information to go over. And then I don't think his legal team knew that Cassie was pregnant, because once they found out that she was pregnant, they tried to push it back, because obviously it doesn't look good to have a sex um, a sex crime victim pregnant on the stand, because it would make her look even more vulnerable, right? Which hurts the defense. She's walking into court, waddling in and shit like that. She's like about to burst open. So it looks good for the prosecution. So Diddy wanted to delay it more, and they said no, because we already got things going. So that kind of ended up shooting him in the foot. But the reason why he requested the speedy trial is because he didn't get bond. Whenever you don't get bond, they typically want to do a speedy trial. But if you do get bond, they let you, the defendant doesn't care about a speedy trial because he's out and about. So that's kind of a blunder that kind of occurred in this situation.
So the boyfriend
Excuse me,
is
guys.
in
One
there.
second.
Is
Go ahead. Sorry, bro.
No. I was just saying. So the boyfriend is in there watching the entire time, because from my lens, it's almost like, considering how he came into the situation, that Diddy was paying for him to train her, and then obviously we knew what happened, and then with the whole FaceTime situation. Do you think that, or is it your impression that he's finding stuff out for the first time, or you know what I'm saying, that he's been familiar, that she's been transparent with the whole situation, and nothing that she's saying on the stand is a surprise to him?
That's a good question, bro. I think if Cassie was smart, she probably kind of warned him what might come up, right? And I think he already knew that this whole grape allegation came through. But the thing that the defense kind of did a really good job here is they basically inferred through the questioning and what they did. Hey, look, were you really raped, or did you just say that you were raped so that you wouldn't deal with the accountability and the embarrassment of cheating on your boyfriend, who ended up becoming your husband? And I
Yeah.
think that's when things really, took a turn. Like, oh, like, did she, you know, there's all this stuff that she's doing, right? Like where she's talking to Diddy after they have consensual sex, after they see each other or party, all this other stuff. Were you actually raped, or were you just embarrassed and you didn't want to come off as a cheater, right? And remember, they had painted a picture of her being promiscuous in the past with the other relationships. So any reasonable person now is going to kind of doubt her story, which is the whole thing that the defense is doing. Now, as far as the boyfriend goes and his knowledge, I do think that he was aware of what was going to come out in court. But what I will say is that it's very obvious that he's extremely perturbed whenever she talks about the sexual stuff. Because I'll look over at him, and he tries to keep a straight face, but you can see his skin start to like change colors. So I think any man, dude, at this point, hearing the things that we've heard and seen the things that we've seen. I mean, she's put some very graphic stuff out there. Like one thing I remember that she said was, I want you to, and I'm gonna clean it for YouTube. She said something along the lines of, I want you to have my legs behind my head, so that I can feel that raw, thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
had a bunch of, very explicit messages like that. So there's no way, even with him knowing that this was coming, to actually see it play out in court, it definitely perturbed.
And she pregnant with another kid too.
This might be a stretch, Myron, but what was the back and forth in terms of visual between Diddy and Cassie? Like, did they look at each other? What was her body language towards him, if any?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because the way that the court is situated, right, which actually pissed me off. They have the AUSA table in front, right? So damn, I wish I had my notebook. I could show
I
y'all a
seen I
diagram of the
seen your
court.
drawing, your diagram too.
Yeah, you know what I might do? I might I'll answer this and then I'll go upstairs real quick and I'll jump because I don't want to lose service with y'all in the elevator. And I'll show y'all a quick diagram. But to answer the question, Diddy's back is to the audience. You can't see anything, but that's because his table is like right up on the stand, so it's really hard to see what he's like, his facial expressions. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's he would look over at the jury quite a bit. Cassie was kind of just stone cold looking at the person that was asking her questions. I never really saw her eyes deviate. Clearly the attorney's office told her to, because they prep their witnesses and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm sure he's boiling in the back of his mind because they did show quite a bit of text messages between her and Diddy that were amicable. One text message that stands out to me, that they showed today, back in like May 7th of 2020. Um, they had a conversation and she admitted like, hey, I had this beautiful life thanks to like meeting you, right? Then next thing you know, a couple years later, she's like working with the feds to get him indicted. And they never met after 2018. It's very important that you guys, realize like after the Kim Porter funeral, she never actually saw Diddy again, despite the fact that they said that they would have a closure talk at some point. Um, but yeah, that's something that came out also that was interesting.
What does he look like? Is his hair completely gray?
Yeah, his hair's completely gray. He's shorter than I thought. He's about probably 5'8". Um,
Jesus.
yeah, his hair's completely gray, man. And he wears every day. He wears like a sweater with like a white shirt underneath and some slacks, and that's pretty much what it is. And he sits in the middle of the table between his attorneys, and I see him going back and forth, like talking with them and stuff. He'll look back periodically. His sons were in the courtroom pretty much every day. The one, I forget the son's name, that was Kim Porter's son, and then the lighter
Yeah.
skinned guy. I know those two in there, and then the other guy that kind of has like blonde hair with glasses. I think those are his three sons, if I'm not mistaken. They were in the
Yeah.
courthouse every time, and he would look back and blow them kisses and stuff.
Myron,
Yeah.
do you have do you have any information on whether there is a witness that disappeared?
If there's a what? I'm sorry.
Do you have any information concerning the witness that supposedly disappeared for this case? Like it's supposed to be another star witness.
Oh, no, I don't. I'll be honest with you. But what I will say is that the girl from Danny Kane, I forget her name, Dawn something. She hit
Yeah.
the
Dawn
stand today
Richard.
with 30 minutes left, and she didn't waste no time, bro. She went into Diddy coming downstairs, yelling at Cassie about not having some eggs ready, trying to hit her with a skillet, kicking her and punching her when she was on the floor, when she's in fetal position, dragging her upstairs. Like she didn't even, she ain't hesitate. She just started coming and swinging, talking about the violent acts that she saw. But
And do you
yeah,
think Albie Shore, because he was on the news talking, do you think he's gonna testify to anything?
say that again. I'm sorry,
Albie
guys. Just
Shore, do you think Albie Shore might testify to anything?
I'll be sure. Who's that again?
So
That's
that's so one of the kids, one of like his adopted kids.
the light
Um,
skinned one.
yeah, it's actually Albie Shore's son.
So he was on the news and he said he might testify. So I was wondering if you
Is it the
thought,
taller one that kind of looks like Chris Brown with the blonde hair? Because I saw one
yeah,
guy
I
there.
yeah,
think
he's
so.
real light skinned. He got the
It's the taller
unibrow.
one.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I doubt he's going to testify, and I'll tell you why. He's been in the courtroom listening to all the testimony. That's a big no-no for witnesses. So the fact that he's in a courtroom watching the proceedings, there's no way that they're going to let him testify on either side.
I was listening to you say. I think you said that Lil Rod is the reason why his homes got raided.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I'll let me break that down. And Anton, real quick, bro, I just want to say thank you for showing me love the other night, bro. That's why I made sure I'm tired as fuck, but I had to jump on this stream and give y'all some
No,
value, bro.
I appreciate you, bro. The value that you have. I think that you are probably the most thorough person that is breaking down this trial.
I
Um,
appreciate that, bro. But I had to come in and show love, man, and give you guys anything that you guys asked for. But to answer that question with I'm sorry, what was the witness that you asked about again?
Lil Rod.
Oh yes, Little
Yeah,
Rod. Okay, so for those that don't know, Little Rod is a guy that worked under Diddy. I think he was like an engineer slash producer slash whatever. And obviously, by virtue of being his right hand guy when it comes to that stuff, Diddy has studios at all of his houses. So since Rod was always at the houses doing stuff, he had very intimate knowledge of what the houses looked like, what was there, etc. And that is perfect for the feds to get their probable cause. Because when it comes to the federal system, I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds here, but I'm going to give you all this because I think it's important and a pertinent fact. When it comes to search warrants, right? you got two different types of search warrants. You got federal search warrants and you got state search warrants. State search warrants, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, they're a joke a lot of the times. Sometimes they don't get stand up in court, especially federal court. They don't hold the same level of, they don't get the same level of scrutiny, right? It's very common practice where DEA will use the state to get search warrants to get into houses because, trying to do a federal warrant is a lot harder. Now, with that said, I said that so that you guys understand how difficult it is to get a federal search warrant. So the fact that Little Rod was able to get them the PC that they needed to get into a house tells me that, number one, he had been there recently before they raided it, because the feds typically want what they call 2 weeks of freshness, right? And what that means is the PC needs to be fresh for about 2 weeks. So if I buy drugs from a criminal, right, and he's at a house, I want to go ahead and write a search warrant for that house, I need to basically do a couple of buys, and I need that to have been done within 1 to 2 weeks, which is what's called keeping the probable cause fresh. And the reason why they do this is because your home, right, is considered the highest threshold of protection under the Fourth Amendment, right? The right to be safe in your property and business and personal effects, etc. So when it comes to getting search warrants federally, they're very hard to come by, and you need 2 weeks roughly of fresh PC to get in there. So I always suspected it was someone very close to Diddy that provided the information to HSI to get those search warrants. But once I found out that it was Little Rod, and I got it from a very, how do I say this, credible source, it connected everything to me, because he was one of the few people that actually was in the house and had the direct knowledge that the feds would have needed to be able to get in there.
Mm. So all of the evidence that they're using against him or for him, whether it be the prosecution or the defense, it seems like it's mainly coming from Cassie. So what did they actually seize from his house that they're using against him in this case?
So right now at this moment, the agent that testified earlier today, she was the one that ran the search for his hotel when he got arrested in New York, right? So
Mhm.
obviously that's not going to be as evidence rich as his homes. So what I predict is going to happen, actually, I'm certain this is going to happen, they're probably going to call at least 3 HSI special agents that were at each search scene. Okay. So they did a search in September when they arrested him here in Manhattan at the hotel. Then they did a search in Miami at his mansion
Yep.
there. And then I think they did another search in LA, if I'm not mistaken. So what I predict is the next 2 agents that testify are probably going to be agents that were present at the at those 2 search warrants, because you need someone to testify that was there with the evidence as to where it was found, how it was found, etc. And this woman was there on the New York search. She pretty much like ran it. So we didn't get as much in the search that they did in New York. They found a bunch of baby oil, ketamine, fluorescent lights, lube, sexual stuff. So it confirmed like what Cassie said as far as like, you know, using the
A
baby oil and all that
lifestyle.
other stuff. But I
Yeah.
think, was that my mic cut out?
No. You're right. You good.
Yeah. So what I predict is the houses have more information. Now I know for a fact the Miami house, they found an AR-15 with a scratched off serial number. Now that's a federal crime, and I'm actually surprised that they didn't charge him with the obliterated serial number. That for that AR-15. But I predict that it, probably would have been more trouble than it's worth, because they got really serious charges on him already. So why, step over $100 bills to pick up quarters?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm actually very interested to see what they're going to find at the houses. But again, the search team in New York also made that blunder I told you guys about before, where they took $9,000 of cash that they found in one of his bags, which was, I think, a very rookie move and stupid, and opened themselves up to questioning that quite frankly shouldn't even have come, because she was smooth during her whole testimony. It was only when the money came up that the defense was able to kind of attack her. And as an agent, you want to stay away from getting beat up on cross-examination.
So did this really all start because of Cassie's original claim, or were they already investigating him?
That's a damn good question. Um, I'm hoping that like they bring on a. So I know for a fact they're going to bring on at least 3 agents that were heading each of the search warrants. What I'm hoping is they're going to bring an agent on that was actually involved in the investigation from the beginning, right? That interviewed the witnesses, that was alongside the case agent, helping him out. Because cases big like this, typically there's a main case agent, and then he's going to have 1 to 2 what's called co-case agents. And typically the case agent never testifies. It's typically a bad look. But maybe one of his co-case agents will testify, and they're going to be the ones that more than likely reveal how this case initiated. Right now, I think, it probably kind of came right around the time that she filed the lawsuit and it got settled. But I wouldn't be surprised if, there was an open case from before and Cassie was finally the missing piece that they needed to go after her. Well, actually, no, hold on. Wait one sec. I just thought of something. So, again, we're getting really in the weeds here. When they did the search warrant in Miami, right? One of the agents that was doing the search warrants got photographed by the press. And me being the autistic person I am, I zoomed in on the evidence bag, right? That he was carrying out the mansion in Miami. And I looked at the case number. And when I looked at the case number, that tells you everything you need to know because it's coded in a certain way, but obviously I worked for HSI, so I know what all the codes are. And if I'm not mistaken, it said it either started in fiscal year 2022, 2023, or 2024. That's what it was. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I could feel pretty confident telling y'all that the case started somewhere in that range. But also keep in mind, again, getting in the weeds, the government operates on what's called the fiscal year. So October 1st is the beginning of the year. So what could
Yeah.
have happened was, the case started at another time, but it might give the impression that it was actually starting that time because it goes off of, October 1st.
Did they mention anybody of significance, like any famous people?
Yeah.
Um,
So today, one of the points of contention was they talked about how Diddy often took her phone. And so they asked her, hey, we heard that you got your phone taken away on multiple occasions. And this time, 2013, and she couldn't recall. So, they just kind of said in open court, yeah, you danced with Chris Brown, didn't you? She's like, oh, well, I don't remember him taking my phone for that. And then they showed her a text message where it literally showed that, which their offense is like fucking, 10 years plus ago. Who else came up? Michael B. Jordan came up that she potentially had an affair with him. Obviously, Kid Cudi. Who else? Ryan Leslie, uh, Nicki Minaj, and then not necessarily aligned to the case, but Cassie talked on the stand today about the artists that she worked with. Nicki Minaj, Rick Ross, who else? Lil Wayne, a couple other names I can't think of right now at the top of my head. And the reason that came up is because the defense made the argument like, look, you talk all this stuff about Diddy holding your career back or whatever, but quite frankly, he put you in position to meet a lot of artists, names of the artists you work with, and that's where she named it. But those are the
mm,
names that have been named in the case. But as far as like being involved with her directly, Ryan Leslie, Michael B. Jordan, Chris Brown, DJ Wu Kid came up briefly, uh, Britney Spears, and I think that's what I could think of off the top of my head.
mm.
Is that Myron? Is that quote true? That she said that Nicki Minaj said to her like,
Sorry, what was that? Yeah, I heard Nicki Minaj, a quote about Nicki Minaj.
was the quote true?
Uh,
That
which
she
quote?
said Nicki Minaj said, because the reporting outlets are saying that Nicki Minaj said that she should just be happy that she's a star.
No, that's false. That didn't come up in court. Nicki Minaj was only
Okay.
brought up when the defense tried to ask her, because okay, to make this make sense, one of the big complaints that Cassie had was her career was stifled and she couldn't progress her career because she felt like Diddy would blackmail her with the freak off videos. So what the defense did to counter, and once again, this is why his defense team is really fucking good. They said, really? So Diddy stifled your career? Tell me how he was able to get you songs with Rick Ross, Nicki Minaj, blah, blah, blah. And they named all the artists she worked with to kind of rebut that claim that she made about being blackballed or potential blackmail. And that's how Nicki Minaj's name came up. It was strictly in a music sense.
Oh, so that must be. I read that they were trying to go into the start of her career before she even met Diddy to ask her, like, were you successful before you even met him? And she tried to make it seem like her career as a model was successful. I'm guessing that that's why they went down that road of questioning with her.
No, I think they went down that road because she kept talking about being blackballed and only releasing one album, despite the fact she was on a 10 album deal. And she feels as though these freak offs took up so much of her time that she wasn't able to focus on her music. According to her, they were doing a freak off damn near every week, and these freak offs can last somewhere between 24 hours to 4 days. And on top of that, they were using ridiculous amounts of drugs. So after the freak off, she had to take more time to recover. So by the time she kind of got back around to recovering from the drugs, it's time to do another freak off. So that was one of her main gripes. She also mentioned today that she had an opportunity to shoot a music video with Common and Diddy denied it. Uh, and that was something else that came up. But that's why the Nicki Minaj situation came up, to kind of disprove her claim that Diddy was blackballing her.
Has there been any talks of her stealing some money from Diddy?
No, that came. She stole drugs from Diddy. She didn't steal money from him. That's, I think, another misconception. And the reason why that's relevant is because her story is, she didn't even say she stole the drugs. She said that Diddy accused her of stealing drugs from him, and while they were like in France or something like that, and he went mad. And when they were coming back to the United States, what ended up happening was, on the plane ride back, he was showing her a video of her during a freak off and threatened to release that video.
Whoa.
Which is kind of, again, see, it's crazy because like every time I give y'all a piece of evidence, it's like I kind of have to give you guys the other side. So let me just give you the other side. So first she says, yeah, Diddy, I was afraid that Diddy would blackmail me with these, freak off videos, right? First she says that. Then the defense, and this is what I'm saying, Diddy's defense team is fucking good, man. They come in and say, really, Diddy was going to release these these freak off videos. Explain to us why you're the one that has all the footage. Explain to us why Diddy had spent tens of thousands of dollars to ensure that videos didn't get out, because there was a couple instances where they had like real potential security threats with things getting leaked. There was one escort named like Johnny OD or some shit, and another guy that were talking about the sex tape. So Diddy went to great lengths to make sure that that stuff was concealed, which was contradictory to Cassie's stance, where he wanted to release these videos. Now, you can make the argument, right, that the videos that Diddy was going to release might have not necessarily had them in there, but you can also make the argument that releasing those videos would actually hurt him professionally. Because one thing I will say about this case that I've noticed is that Diddy did a really fucking good job of ensuring that people didn't find out about his degenerative lifestyle. And that's precisely why this case is so sensational, is because a lot of the stuff that's coming to light right now is stuff that like maybe 90% of the population didn't know about unless you were actively in the music industry.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. I
Yeah,
will say,
it's a lot, bro. That's why it's like for everything that like Cassie says, like the defense has like kind of a counter, and then on top of that, then the government has another counter for that. So when it comes to lawyers, the lawyers are good. And yeah, the whole situation that we're discussing before, when it comes to Diddy and like his due process, like, look, my thing is, and Anton, you know this, I'm a big free speech guy, I'm a big constitutionalist guy. So my thing is like, even if someone's a criminal, or I suspect them to be a criminal, his right to a fair trial overtakes and overrides Cassie's, pregnancy. Because we're talking about, this is going to be a life sentence for Diddy if he gets convicted. He's looking at, 20, 30, 40 years plus, and the man's 55, guys. He's done a good job of like making himself look young in the media by dyeing his hair jet black, but he is actually very old. So, there's a reason why he put this team together. And from what I understand, he spent like 10M on this team.
really.
That's what I was told. That's what I was told. And who knows if that's just pre-trial. Like at the end, I'm sure he's probably gonna get another bill because they're working around the clock, dude. Because every time, so like when you walk into a courtroom, right, the jurors aren't there. The judge gets on the bench at like 9, right? When he gets on the bench, he basically, the defense and the prosecutors are arguing for like 30 to 40 minutes. Then the jurors come in, and these arguments pretty much end up where it's like, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. Okay, we agree to do this, agree to do that. But they got to stay late and like actually get that shit fulfilled, because the judge goes irate if the stuff isn't ready when the jurors are there. And this is another thing I think is very important for your audience to realize. Whenever these trials come, right, the judge. Yo, what's up, man? Oh, thank you. Appreciate the support, bro. Thank you. I'm live right now, actually. So. Hey, man. Repeal the 19th. But anyway, what was I saying?
No, you was
So they're doing a lot of work behind the scenes because they have to have everything ready, because the judge, had made it a point like, look, I don't want these jurors waiting around while you guys are trying to figure this shit out during the trial, right? Like we should have had some of this shit done before. And I think an important note, this is what I was getting to. Judges always prioritize the jurors over the attorneys, right? And what I mean by that is like the jurors are already, expending an incredible amount of time. Yeah. The podcast. Yeah. Nice to meet you too, bro. Um, what was I gonna say?
No,
So
you're
the judge
saying
is
he
always gonna
prioritizes
be
yours.
the judge is always going to be more concerned with protecting the jurors' time and ensuring that they get the main priority because in his eyes, most in every judge's eyes, they look at it as like a civil duty and like civic duty, and these guys are like going out of their way and losing money and losing time to help the court's case. So every single time he's always looking at the jury and making sure that the attorneys have their shit together before he brings the jury in. So I think that's another important fact, important thing for your audience to kind of know is that before the jurors come in, they're going back and forth arguing about evidence and bringing shit in. Like I know one of the things that they had a big fucking argument about, two main things. Number one, getting Cassie off the stage by today, Friday, which they were able to successfully do, and the other thing was the sexually explicit images from the freak offs. So the government was trying to be in a position where they can bring this stuff in without making Cassie look bad. So what they all settled on was they were only going to use still images from the freak offs, and they wouldn't let the public see it. Only the jury and the judge and the parties involved can see it. But when we were there in the courtroom, we couldn't see any of it, and it's the only exhibits that weren't made public to the audience.